Thanks, Philip. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the importance of using the correct grind for your coffee. If you want to make the perfect cup of coffee, you must have your coffee ground the correct way. So the first question we ask is, what type of filter are you using? Are you using a paper filter, the very common kind that you see in every grocery store or every hotel? Are you using a metal filter, something that's in a French press? Most of you probably have all seen a metal filter before. So depending on what type of filter you have is how finely ground you want your coffee. If you're using a paper filter, it's a really fine mesh. Obviously, you don't want your coffee to be ground too coarse, otherwise it's just going to run right through the filter. But if your coffee is ground too fine, it'll sit in there too. So the same thing goes with a metal filter. If a metal filter is what you are using, you want to make sure that with that metal filter, you're grinding the coffee coarse enough that those grounds aren't going to sneak into your cup of coffee. Nobody wants grounds in their coffee. The second question is, what happens if your grind is too fine? When the grind is really fine, I think of coffee grinds like sand. It gets really fine and then the water sits on top and it just slowly drips through. What happens when that happens? It causes this bitter, over-extracted cup of coffee. The water sat in the coffee for too long and then it comes out thick and almost syrupy. I'll show you some grounds. These are some grounds that are ground very, very fine. You can kind of see here. I'll show you how fine that is. It's almost like sand. And if we can compare that to the grounds that are ground a lot more coarse, you can even see how much coarser those are than these grinds. And you can tell even by looking and comparing these two containers how different that is. So what happens if your coffee is ground too coarse, as in this grind? Well, the water, just like sand, except think of it as rocks. If you're pouring water through rocks, it's going to rush through. Whereas sand, it drips very slowly. Rocks, it's going to run through, just like really coarsely ground coffee. So therefore, you're going to come out with a really watery cup of coffee. It won't have much flavor. The complexity of the coffee is going to suffer. And it's just not going to have very good balance between the two. However, if you find somewhere in between this type of ground and this type of grind, you're going to have the perfect cup of coffee. So what happens with that? You're going to have the perfect balance, the complexity that your coffee needs, and the taste in the morning will be the perfect cup. As long as you follow step number 2, which is proportion. How much coffee are you using versus how much water you're using to brew that coffee. And Jennifer is up next to talk about that. Take it away, Jennifer.